Hey guys, and welcome back. So I'm gonna start improving the lighting a bit because there's not much we can do to the shader. We just need reflection, but what we're going to reflect is what's really important. So I'm gonna go to the RS Dome. I'm gonna load in a different map, the CG Sky example that I showed, and instead I'm not going to use the sample one. We have the high-res version, so we're going to load that in. I'm going to set the rotation to 270, I believe. But let's do a quick test. And Redshift has this menu here for doing all kinds of color correction. This is amazing because it allows us to, quickly test things, change the white balance and things like that. But it also allows us to use LUTs, and we can use one of these LUTs that ships by default. They're actually really good. This is professional LUTs, and but instead I'm going to use one that I can have in Nuke as well, ready in case I wanted to use. So let's first take a look. So this is the HDR. I didn't change anything, by the way. Sorry. I just switched the HDR, hit play. This is how it looks like, and I'm gonna increase the exposure by 1, and I'm gonna turn on. I'm gonna use a LUT. So in this example, I'm gonna use ASIS, and let me find the map. So if you Google ASIS, you will find a GitHub where all these files are located, and you will get a folder that looks like this, ASIS 1.0.3. If you open that up, there's a config file. I'm gonna load that in, and this is what it looks like now. We have to tweak everything based on with this LUT in. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed with this LUT is that it does saturate colors a bit, especially blue, and it tends to darken it crunches any mid or low range. So we can fix some of that. We can increase the exposure, for example. Sorry, not the contrast. We can increase the exposure. We can lower the contrast of the image. This is post-processing, and then I really like this feature because let's lower this a bit, because it allows me to do white balance, and I can get a very good indication of what this may look like and under a different lighting condition. And another thing, it tends to saturate ocean or the colors quite a bit, so I like to desaturate things. And it has a vignette, which is cool. I really like this tool set. Okay, so that's our first shader, and so far it looks pretty good. Now the main important part is not going to come from the reflection. It's going to come from the refraction. If you guys remember from the visual reference study that we did, we never see colors like this. It's always flat. Okay, we don't get a lot of visual data in there. And let me I want to show something. So I'm gonna keep this camera, and I'm gonna select it. Let's make a copy. I'm gonna create a null, or I'm gonna rotate this in place so that I look straight down like this. And it's changing here. So it's changing here. I don't know why I'm not changing my camera. Okay, well this is very, very good because I can explain the Fresnel better. So if we go all the way up, you can see now we're getting more and more blue. And now we're pretty much aligned with this, and we're getting 100% reflection here. You can see there's no more refraction. Everything is reflective. And if we lower this to -90, we're going to be facing straight down, and it's only going to capture the parts where they are hitting the the sunlight or a direct source that makes sense for it to be reflected here. Or actually these points are facing the camera because of the way the displacement is. Now this coloration is coming from that diffuse component that we left. If I go back to the ocean shader and set this to 0, you'll see that it goes black. I only get reflection. And if I gain it, of course it's gonna show other things, but this is what the shader is giving us back. And I actually think that a reflection of 1.5 is a bit high, so let's try 1.3. And now what we're really missing is the refraction. So if I turn this on, you'll see we're getting refraction now. This HDR has a CG source texture on it, so that's what we're looking at here. And what we want to do, let's go back to the camera, set this to -13. What we want to do is we want to get, instead of this black color, after we turned on I'm gonna bookmark this, Control-2. After we added the refraction, which is set to 1, it's a bit high. You can see we're getting 100% black, and the reason for that's because it's sampling the HDR. We don't want it to sample the HDR. We want to be able to control this, and the easiest and the best workflow for that is to create the geometry underneath. So let's do that. I'm gonna pause the render view, and I'm gonna go to the object level. I'm gonna create a grid. I'm gonna call this ocean bottom, and let's dive inside. Let's make it the same size of the ocean. Could go a bit bigger, and I'm gonna move it down. Let's take a look. Something like that. And I'm gonna create a shader for this. So let's copy the ship. It's fine. I'm gonna call this ocean bottom, and let's assign it. And with this one, I actually don't want it to be visible to the camera, even though we're never gonna see it. I'm gonna go under visibility and turn on primary visibility, because I want this to be for refraction only. And let's dive inside. I don't need a shader, I need a constant color. I'm gonna create a noise, and let's go to the render view. I'm gonna make a floating copy of this, and I'm gonna set this to always on top. And the reason I do this because I can bring it back in quickly, or I can have it here and scale it, extend it as I need to. So with this one, instead of everything, I'm gonna include the ship ocean bottom only. That's what I need. And let's hit play, and let's go to the material, and we want to tweak this. So UV coordinate, the noise, let's see why this is not happening. The LUT sometimes messes this up if you have like very low values. And here it's looking up for the UV coordinate. Expect this to show up. Where is noise? Let's see. Oh yes, sorry, I turned off the primary visibility. Of course, it was not visible. And let's go back to the shader. Now if I turn this on, you see it's white now. So let's go back to the shader, and let's set this to 1, and this to blue. I'm gonna lower this. You see the noise scale there. I'm gonna lower this to 0.01 to get something like this, and I don't need a cell. Turbulent fractal is better, and I don't need to. The gain is basically going to distort this. I don't need too much variation. And for the colors, I want to create that pattern that we see in oceans. So I want some blue tone and another darker blue tone. So something like this. Okay, but this is not the final judge of how this map should look like. Let's increase. We can add some distortion if we want to. Yeah, I want some bias. I want to create, you know, super bright spots and then dark areas. And let's go to the out context again. Sorry, the render. I'm gonna include the ocean render geo because we want to see this through the refraction. Let's hit render. Ocean render geo. Let's include the ship. And let's hit the interactive rendering. Okay, so I'm gonna use not the wide camera, I'm gonna use the mid camera. And you can see that we have a lot of refraction now. We're seeing a lot of refraction and we're losing, it's balancing things based on the amount of refraction we're getting. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tweak the ocean shader to have less refraction. Let's reduce this, and you can see now instead of having these black colors, we have two things. We have an underneath layer and the variation from the coloration. You can see it here. So what we need to do is tweak the map, not the refraction. So I'm going to increase the noise pattern 0.025. I'm going to make one color very dark. And let's reduce this as well. And here we have total control of the refraction color, obviously. And I think I need the other way. But yeah, you can see the spots there. Let's reduce the refraction amount. And let's go. I'm trying to get some variation, but I think it's there. It's just that we have to tweak a bit more. There's nothing left for me to show. Let's increase the refraction. Yeah, you can see this spot is very blue. It's very dark, and I think I'm gonna tweak the noise. So here, set this to 1, set this to 2.5, and I'm gonna tweak the colors even more. So instead of this, I'm gonna desaturate this, something like that. And what I want is I want to make everything blue, and I want these spots to be like that, but they're too much now. So let me invert this. Something like that. And I'm pretty sure you guys got the idea. Sorry, I'm not able to tweak this as best, much better than this, but that's the idea. You create different colors underneath. Okay, so that's for the ocean, and let's go back to the shader, and here let's increase the reflection. And basically what this allows us to do is if we want more reflection where the camera is facing, where the ocean is facing the camera, the lower the value, the less reflection we get. 1 is no reflection. So 1.5 is a good value, I think. And let's lower the refraction amount. And here it really depends on the ocean type. There is no magic rule. This color will indicate how deep your ocean is. We can multiply it with the refraction color like that, but it really depends on the kind of look you want to achieve. There is nothing crazy here. And we have roughness that is linked to the reflection itself. We can break that law, we can break the connection and introduce a different refraction amount. So I'm not going to do that because I'm happy with those values. Maybe even increase this. I don't know why it's not working. 0.1. Let's leave it at that. And then what else do we have? And then we want to introduce just a tiny bit of diffuse, and that helps add some shadows, you know, because you can get some, it's not very physically very accurate, but you can get some sand and dust in the ocean, and that's gonna create some diffuse component onto the ocean. Obviously we don't want a gray color, so probably go with something like that. And the next thing we want to do is to read in those cusp information and use them to vary the shader and various things in the shader, basically. And that's pretty much it. Let's do a high res render. Let me tweak the reflection quickly. The map, I mean. 260. And that's the sun. Do something like that. And I'm gonna do 3 different renders. Oh, forgot to do the OCIO. Okay, so let's turn on the ACE workflow. I'm gonna gain the image. Sorry. I'm gonna gain the image. I'm gonna turn on the photographic. I'm gonna desaturate this. And I'm gonna change the white. And I want to desaturate the ocean. Something like that. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to increase the render settings. I'm going to do 3 different renders. So let me pause this and let's go to the ocean render. I'm going to lower this to 2 and 8 for the final settings. For the camera, I'm going to change to user specified resolution 1920 by 1080. And for the settings, I'm going to increase this to 16 by 64 in the redshift tab and lower this to 0.05.